Okay, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to the Board of Agriculture regular board meeting. The date is January 22nd, 2016, and the time is 9:07 a.m. Again, welcome. We're going to go ahead and go around the room, but first I want to check in real quick to make sure. Let's see, who do we got? That makes it easy. There we are. I'm going to just say, just in case, Elko, is there anybody in Elko right now?
You have a better camera than you used to have.
Isn't that better?
Yeah.
Wow. How about Las Vegas? I saw a little face there earlier, but.
This is Robert Levitt. There's no public there.
Okay, Robert, thank you very much. So we're going to go ahead and start right off the bat by opening this up to public comment. Public comment for anybody that wants to talk about an item that's not on this agenda today and requests an item to be placed on a future agenda. Does anybody have any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead real quick and stand, and we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Alan P., would you please lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and go around the room and introduce ourselves. It looks like we can go ahead and just start down there with Mr. Perazzo. We'll work our way around and just go right into the public. How's that?
Okay.
Go ahead, Alan.
Alan Perazzo, a board member representing dairies from Churchill County.
Paul Noel, representing nursery, Clark County.
Brian Nakaguchi, pesticides, Clark County.
Tim Defrina, livestock, Humboldt County.
Boyd Spratling, livestock, Elko County.
Jim Snyder, Lyon County Row Crops.
Pete Paris, sheep, representing sheep industry, Elko County.
Paul Anderson, Washoe County Petroleum.
Dennis Belcourt, Deputy Attorney General.
David Six Jr., I represent livestock from Lyon County. And real quick, Ramona is on her way. We should see her in about 5 minutes, but Ramona there, General Ag.
Jim Barbie, NDA.
Jerry Conrad, NDA.
Flynn Wright, NDA.
Rebecca Allard, NDA.
Part 2 NDA.
David Barrett, dedicated to organics.
Heather Kerwin, Washoe County Food Policy Council.
Jeff Sudich, NDA.
Katrina Bukovic, NDA. Audrey Stratton.
Russell Wilhelm, NDA. Robert Little, NDA.
Megan Brown, NDA.
Mark Jensen, USDA Wildlife Services.
Bill Payne from the College of Agriculture, Biotechnology, and Natural Resources.
Okay. For the record, Ramona, good morning.
Good morning.
We kind of semi-announced you, Ramona Morrison, General Ag.
Yes.
Which county would you like to be from today?
Hi.
There you go. Home sweet home.
Home sweet home.
All right. Great. Everybody, glad to see you here. We're going to go ahead and move rapidly right along. Next item, which I believe is item 3, correct, is our minutes. Did everybody get a chance to look at these minutes as they're presented? Does anybody have any issues with the minutes as they're sent to you? I'll entertain a motion to approve of the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Spratling, seconded by Mr. Paris. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimous. Next item is Director's Report. Mr. Barbie, are you going to, I thought we saw earlier that there was a discussion about the merger. Is it going to be right first?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So we had been requested, Department of Ag, to weigh in on the proposed merger of Cooperative Extension with the College of Agriculture Biotechnology, and I thought who better to talk about the issue than Dean Payne. So we appreciate him taking the time to come over and kind of give us an overview of what that looks like and kind of talk to us about it. And then if the Board of Ag decides it wants to weigh in, it is a possible action item. So after Dean Payne presents and you guys get an opportunity to ask any questions, then we can take a public input, and then if you choose to make an action, then you do. So I turn it over to Dean Payne and I would ask you to go to the chair. We'll put you in the hot seat, Dean. And
I'm becoming increasingly used to it.
used to that, right? We do. You are welcome here, and we do appreciate you coming and sharing. That I guarantee you.
Well, thank you, and what a pleasure to be here. I make sure that I'm on the mailing list or whatever, so I'd like to attend more often. I've noticed that I cannot assume at this university and in the state that people know what a land-grant university is. So if I sound condescending, forgive me. I won't ask for a show of hands, but there's something very unique in the United States that helped transform us as a society, and that's the land-grant university system. It's a revolutionary approach that the United States took to education quite some years ago, and the basic tenet was that education was for everybody and not just for the elite. Now, there are three basic pieces of legislation that underpin the land-grant university system. The first was signed in 1862 by Abraham Lincoln. Right, that's the Morrill Act. It created in each state colleges of largely agriculture and mechanics, and that's why you still see so many universities with the initials A&M after them. All right. That revolutionized around the world education. It meant that people who were largely rural and largely poor suddenly had access to education, largely through agriculture and mechanics, and this is a way for us to address the upcoming industrial revolution. All right. The second act was in 1884, and that's the Hatch Act, and that puts funds aside for research. So that's the second arm of the land-grant university system. And then the third act of legislation was in 1914, and that was the Smith-Lever Act, which set up cooperative extension at a federal level. So this is a unique partnership between state, federal, and county governments that has worked for more than 100 years, and it has effectively transformed our society and our economy from one that was largely rural and agriculture to one that was manufacturing and today largely information-driven. Now, the mission of those land-grant colleges, and that includes the colleges of agriculture and the ag experiment stations, the research park, and certainly cooperative extension have changed. They've evolved as our society has. But the fact is that those three stools, or legs of one stool, if you will, were intended to work in an integral fashion, not in isolation. And that is the case to this day at most land-grant universities, certainly in the West. I'm going to say the West because Western land-grants they are grouped together in the American Association of Public Land-Grant Universities. And they're grouped because they tend to address common issues, whether it's fire or public lands in the West, or distant populations and that sort of thing. The current structure we have is an anomaly. We have a cooperative extension that is essentially a college unto itself. That is unprecedented in the West. There's no place like that in the West. We also have colleges of agriculture who have evolved, become many different things. In ours, for example, we have anything from biotechnology to natural resources, nutrition, etc. And then experiment stations have evolved in many ways to take on a variety of challenges. But they are also conducted in most states such that you have research and extension centers throughout the state. Now, I've been here just under 2 years, and what I believe that I found is a system that is essentially broken, or at least curious. I'm not making criticisms of individuals. We have outstanding individuals in Kavner, and we have outstanding individuals in cooperative extension. My criticism is more of how the system is working together. Each of those three stools, or three legs of the stool, if you will, has had undergone severe budgetary cuts, and they've lost critical positions. And for historical reasons, I would say the College of Agriculture, etc., hasn't had much agriculture in it for 20 years. And I set out to try and change that. But another thing that I'm trying to accomplish is not only to restaff critically missing disciplines, but to get those three legs of the stool, if you will, to work much more effectively than they have in the past. I'm doing that within Kavner in the last 2 years. We now have positions like a horticulturalist, an agronomist. These are positions we haven't had in decades. And we're now recruiting someone for beef production. And I could go on and tell you about other hires that we're trying to bring into place. We will be recruiting next year a plant breeder, somebody in irrigation. It will be the first time we've had these in decades in this state, which is strange. But my second challenge then is to change the way in which experiment station funds are used. So I'm setting out to try to create research and extension centers in the state. That will take some time because of the way funds are being used. But then the next challenge is to have the research and education and extension components work much more effectively than they have in the past. And we do that with a view towards addressing problems, challenges in Nevada through those three missions: research, education, and extension, and to improve Nevadans' lives. In my humble view, in order to make that happen, you have to have one person to make sure that there's respect and collaboration among those three legs of the stool. That's what I'm trying to bring about. And that structure is very much the norm in the West. I'd be happy to answer that. So that's in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. To me, there's been a lot of events in different parts of the community about that, including among some extension professionals. But to me, I think there's been a fair amount of disinformation as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Dean, just real quick, I wanted a few observations. We're trying to get Elko to go to mute real quick, so.
Okay. Elko, if you can hear us, can you go ahead and mute your microphone?
We can hear the microwave cooking your egg McMuffin.
They have it turned down, so we don't bother.
Yeah. Anyways, Dean, a couple observations. I heard a report from you earlier, and I think all of us can appreciate the fact that whether it's fear or just outright ignorance, there's employees on the opposing side not helping. Nor is it ethical to go out and, try to sway the decision. I think that's what happened in Churchill County. However, with that said, there's a huge fear, and I think you can appreciate before we ever saw you, sir, there's a real fear of what's going on over at the university with the ag. I think you can appreciate our fears 10 years ago. What's going on over there? I think the biggest thing is just help us feel comfortable that with this ongoing thing of government siphoning off funds to do other programs, that we're not going to see extension, an issue there, because I think that's everybody's concern. The real concern is as we see budgets, having more and more trouble, will the university decrease those areas in the agriculture? That's I think a real fear that everybody, it's real and it's something that needs to be addressed. Other than that, I think this board should come out and support this. But these are fears that everybody have, and that is, okay, can you talk about that a little?
I've faced similar issues with Kavner, similar challenges, and I think I could make a plausible case that I've turned things around. We've probably hired about 25 positions since I've arrived. We were awarded, if you will, in a very competitive process, first place in this sort of cluster hiring process. whereby I was accorded 9 new positions over 4 years under the rubric of sustainable dryland agriculture. I've staffed disciplines that have been missing, and I've brought about, I think, a much greater level of cooperation with various sticks and carrots that I have at my disposal. So I think I have a little bit of a record now of some success. And when I say record of success, I mean in working with the central administration. Right now, there's somewhat of an adversarial, if you will, unfortunately, relationship between some counties and central administration. I believe I can make a plausible case that I can work effectively with this administration to serve the missions of Kavner Experiment Station, and I maintain, I'm confident I can do the same with Cooperative Extension. I'm in no way, shape, or form interested in bringing resources out of counties onto campus. I want to do just the opposite, with not only research funds, but with extension. I have had a track record of competing for positions within Kavner, with other colleges, and I believe I can do the same thing for Cooperative Extension. But the arguments, I compete based on mission. I compete based on what we can accomplish as a university system with positions that I'm competing for. I find that that's been very easy to do with Kavner because of the roles that we have had and the roles that we ought to have. And I think that I can do that very effectively with Cooperative Extension because I'm of the firm belief, I'm a product of land-grant universities too. I'm from Indiana and I went through 4-H and worked with Extension there. And then I spent most of my career at Texas A&M and a small bit of it at Oregon State. And I've worked internationally on these very topics as well. I believe, quite honestly, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish as a university, you can't do it without extension. And so you have to have certain positions filled and you have to have critical mass. So I honestly believe that I can compete for new positions with a view towards reinvesting in extension, and again, making those 3 legs of the stool work much more effectively in all of the areas that we're supposed to be working in, and that is to prove it lies within Nevada, which is our mission. Yeah.
One quick question for me, and this may be a silly question, but does everybody remember the old Ag Extension commercials? EX10? Do you remember them, Jimmy, on TV and the local news? They always had a little promo ad about Ag Extension. And Charlie, the feeds and nutrition professor, he was featured on. I don't know. They had him in a wheelchair. I don't know why. It was so, and he had this big smile on his face. But anyways, I remember seeing that. But I always thought they were. This is a stupid question, maybe. I thought extension was always a part of the university.
Absolutely, since 1914.
So it was wasn't it in the 80s that they were split out into their own separate college or entity?
90s.
90s.
Oh, but they still fall under the university system.
Absolutely.
So just real quick, what are we doing here that's different than?
What we are doing is we are putting in place a structure in which extension is not isolated as a college in itself, but it is working much more effectively with research and education, and research and education are working much more effectively with it.
And you'll be their boss.
And I'm the person to make sure that they do.
And who is now?
Right now there's an interim dean for extension.
Oh.
And that's Dean Walker.
Okay.
I am currently in charge of Kavner and the Nevada Agricultural Experiment Station.
Okay.
And I've taken measures even so I'm in charge of 2 legs of that stool, if you will.
Okay.
And even thus far, I've done my level best to improve collaboration among the 3 units. But I think we could do so much more.
Okay.
One question. To just kind of give, and maybe this will help define, if this merger were to go through, and I don't think anyone on here is representative of Eureka County, so we'll use Eureka as the example. And I'm a citizen of Eureka County. How is extension going to look different? 2 years after the merger, 5 years after the merger, what would the What would the change as a citizen of Eureka County would I see?
Well, my view is that Eureka has had staffing problems, as I recall. They've had difficulty retaining positions.
And you can be general.
Yeah.
I just
Okay,
try
all
to
right.
pick
Well,
so that you're not promising something.
Yeah. No, in general, there will have been a reinvestment in cooperative extension based on mission, and that would, in my view, that would include 4-H. And extension in Eureka would be cooperating more effectively, I think, with research components and education or teaching components. Now, what they would be cooperating on would be largely county-driven. We all, for those of you that are familiar with the current financial structure of cooperative extension, it's largely financed by counties. The state contribution has fallen tremendously, and because of the way the federal funds are calculated, it's pretty small. The federal formula that determines how many federal dollars we get in extension is largely dependent upon the number of farms you have and the rural population. And even though in some ways we're a very rural population, because we tend to have large farms, we have fewer farmers, if you will, than other states. But nonetheless, we get a fair amount of money for federal.
So that county entity, that county extension agent, the staff that would be at that county level, then by having the connectivity with Cabner and with the research, that county would then have better access to driving what kind of research is happening because
Absolutely.
of what they're specifically looking for, whether it's growing teff or growing alfalfa or whatever that is. In other words, that would be that direct connection to the research that's happening in Cabner, which is separated currently, right?
In my view. Now, there is some collaboration that takes place on an individual basis, but I'm trying to bring in institutional reorganizations such that is the norm rather than the exception. And you bring up a good point. I mean, this system wasn't set up such that there was a linear transfer of information from researchers to extension as other roles, and that includes better informing research. But it's also why in most states you have regionally, in the past, agroecologically based research and extension centers, because local research, or regional research, is much more effective in bringing about impact than is something that's conducted from afar.
Mr. Spratling.
I want to express my discomfort in the relationship between Extension and the College of Agriculture, and it goes back to the 90s when they were separated originally. There was no good reason that was ever given for that. And I think it must have been a political situation and federal funding going different directions for Extension. I'm not sure what it all boiled down to, but there was no good argument for that separation to start with. So I think rejoining that those two entities is probably the best thing.
Thank you. I think that is an accurate assessment.
Thank you, Boyd. Yes, Mr. Snyder.
What has to happen in order for that merger to go through, and where is the decision made? And
ultimately, it has to be approved by the Board of Regents. We just had a sort of retreat with Cabner, NAES, and UNC folks in Lake Tahoe, and we were hosted actually by Bruce Park at the casino which they have in Lake Tahoe, and we've tried to work out a program in a participatory way that would structure this consolidation such that it worked most effectively. In other words, so that we work together thematically, the three legs, if you will, of that stool, and that we address some of the anxieties that those in cooperative extension are in particular are perceiving. That report, I have until February 1st to put together a report on that, along with Dean Walker, to the provost. The provost will use that report to inform his proposal that will be reviewed by the Faculty Senate and then submitted to the Board of Regents, I believe by June. If the Regents approve it, then we move forward with consolidation. And what I tried to map out is a process. We haven't dotted every I and crossed every T, but we're trying to put forth an iterative process so that we, over the span of a year or so, address everybody's concerns and opportunities. And if the Board of Regents don't approve it, then we're back to where we are now.
Any other questions for Dean Payne?
What is it you're looking for from us?
Well, a vote of confidence would help me. One of the things that I have to put forth with that, with any proposal, rather the provost, is letters of support from the community. There it's a mixed bag, as you may have heard. There are some that are very vocally in favor of it, and there are those who are very, very vocally against it.
Jim, the Nevada Cattlemen's last year voted to, this for an ag group that you're familiar with. I brought up Churchill County, if you haven't heard. To me, they're the most vocal opposed to it. But like I said, I think there was some lobbying going on heavy out of that office with the commissioners. Of course, Mr. Olson being one of the commissioners there from the dairy. So this is an action item. And again, I'll ask if there's any more questions for the dean. I would like to go ahead and ask the board, as your chairman, I think we should support him. If the board feels that way, would somebody like to do a motion? Mr. No.
Before we do that, Paul No for the record. What are the major concerns or reasons why the opposition, or for the opposition?
Well, I think the number one thing is there's a new boss. That's the big one. And if you heard, there's a separate dean.
Yeah.
So that interim dean obviously is going to be absorbed somewhere else in Kavner or somewhere within
There would be an
Extension.
associate dean for Extension. It would be an associate director, and that is the norm. That is in the West. That is the norm structure. Now, the objections had to do. There's still a lot of bad feelings. And I dare say mistrust over cuts. Extension took some massive budgetary cuts during the economic crisis, and there are those who fear that this is a move to take county resources and bring them onto campus, for example. We can address that with mechanisms of transparency. I think there are those also who believe that such Department of Extension programs as children, youth, and family wouldn't be adequately addressed if Extension were housed in Kavner. I think that's a misperception. I mentioned that the experiment station had evolved over as American society has, and those are children, youth, and family are very much things that are fundable by the experiment station. There are all kinds of models throughout the West on how that's carried out. Sometimes you have appointments to other colleges, and other times you have departments created within the colleges of ag. But I think those are the major issues.
And Paul, the other part I was talking about earlier when I started off, there's the university dean, there were major budget cuts with the university at the same time.
We lost 45 tenured positions.
Yeah, my feeling is if we go through another one, we may lose Extension altogether unless they may not survive another. But here's one of the other issues that you can't deny that a lot of these people are fearful of is, could that happen quicker under, I don't believe so. I think it stands a better chance of surviving. But Dean also knows that there were a lot of things that have happened to the College of Ag that are irreversible now, okay? I mean, we got the old ranches that were sold off, and those are huge controversial issues. Our former NCA president, who was probably one of the most critical of the university, was very much in favor of this, and Ron worked for those agencies, and I trust Ron, but that losing those ranches and doing those, that really concerns people. But I think we got to look forward. I think we got to trust the dean, and we just got to be more active. If something happens to Dean Payne and we get somebody else in there, we've got to really educate him how important this is. That's our role, I think. We really have to look. Any other questions? Mr. Sprouling, would you like to try a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the Board of Agriculture endorse the rejoining of the College of Extension and Kavner. and that we have the director draft a letter to that appropriate individuals to verify that.
Great.
I second that motion.
Mrs. Morrison seconded it. Mr. Spratling made the motion, and thank you for rejoining. Good choice of words. All right, is there any discussion on the motion that's been presented? All those in favor, any discussion on the item, public comment? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Dean.
Well, thank you. I'd like to come back. I need to get to know, I know some of you, but certainly not all of you, so I'd like to get to know you a bit better.
Do you have somewhere you have to be in the next 20 minutes?
No.
Would you mind
Not at all.
hanging around? And we usually try to take a break, the little one,
Okay.
every hour or so. If
I'd
you
like
wouldn't
to-
mind, I'd like to visit with you.
All right, thanks.
It's like 30 seconds. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, quickly. I didn't want you guys to get away without having one piece of paper, right, that you leave with. Jerry thought she had it covered, said no paper this time. I came up with one just so you transition you into this.
Oh, you brought some paper, very good.
Need something to make notes
Slow
on.
and steady, right? Exactly. You got doodle paper now.
And that's what I consider it.
Right.
When you hand an ag guy this stuff, it's like, I'm used to a big square with green, right? And then in one corner, there's the house, and the rest is water righted acreage. And what is this?
So as you can see, we're embracing technology. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. So for the rest of my update, I'll hit some highlights of some things that we're currently, some changes that we've made, some things that we're currently working on. Some of the detail I'll hold back because our division administrators will be reporting on it. But at a high level, some of the things I want to hit is we've had several positions that where we've had them vacated by folks. We've actually moved those positions. In one case, we've actually moved the position and offered it to a staff member, and they declined. So our deputy plant administrator position, of course, came open as Robert Little became our division administrator. We took his position and moved that position out to the Elko office. We're trying to have a more diverse presence in Elko, as well as we continue on this, you'll see in Las Vegas. And so the deputy plant position is there. Robert will talk about the person who's taken that position. The state vet or state veterinarian's position, we actually have moved that position to Elko. And the purpose or the rationale behind that is we want to get that laboratory up and operational again. We recognize that the state vet, with technology as it is today, could easily work from the Elko lab, administer and supervise staff here in the Sparks laboratory, do the travel paperwork and all that kind of stuff directly there out of the Elko lab. And then we can get that Elko lab back and open. For us, we continue to struggle in the animal identification account. This gives us an opportunity to explore more revenue sources because we have so many of the testing. There's Nevada animal lab tests that are being done in Nevada are actually going out to Utah and to Idaho, the labs there to be tested. And so that'll keep those tests here, hopefully in Nevada. It'll also give us a direct presence, where we have the most livestock, the most wildlife, and the most, one would assume, correlating with that animal disease issues in the state. So that position has been moved out to Elko effective mid-February, and Flint can talk a little bit more on the staffing side of that. We did offer that to our current state vet and offered him the opportunity to move out to Elko. He consulted with his family and decided he would like to stay here on the west side, so he declined to move with that position. We also have moved the deputy food and nutrition position from the Sparks office to the Las Vegas office. And that person will be hired, or will start on February 1st, and Donnell can go into a little more detail on the individual during her presentation. But what that does is gives us an unclassified administrator in each one of our headquarters offices. And that gives us someone that is running, obviously, those programs are coordinated with out of that office, but also someone that is also then coordinating with all of the other administrators that are here in the Sparks office in terms of dealing with staffing issues, day-to-day operations of those facilities. And so each one of the Elko and the Las Vegas office will definitely look quite a bit differently. Talking about the Las Vegas, so is there any questions on that? Good. Talking about the Las Vegas office, as you know, we've been in, we've taken over the Metro building, and that has been in a capital improvement project that they started on, I believe, in is it October or November? November, the remodel there. As we knew, once they got into there, they identified some other issues in the building. The biggest one that came to light was that basically that's a slab floor, and all the septic lines, because that had been vacated for like 3 or 4 years, were bad. And so they actually had to jackhammer the slab floor out of the facilities and put all new septic lines into the facilities, and that had additional costs for, obviously, for the concrete and for the work to put those new in, but then they also had to tear 2 different bathrooms out to be able to get wall access and rerun all of those pipes and everything. So we had an increased cost in that, and what it currently looks like, our original portion of that, it was ag money, out of the total $2 million was $617,000. It looks like they're going to continue to be roughly $60,000 short. So we're working on a work program currently that'll move $60,000 into that CIP project. Of course, that's a cost allocated across the programs that are actually utilizing that facility or that building. And as you look at this schematic, you can kind of see what those different programs are and where they fall. A couple of other expenditures that we're going to have moving forward is we've got to get the board furniture for the boardroom and furniture for the training room. Those will be additional costs that we'll be looking at where we have authority and where we can pay for those out of. And then in the warehouse portion, which is to the far right, we'll have 3-stack, like Costco racks that we'll actually purchase through Food and Nutrition and put into that portion after we get moved into the building. Currently, our timeline is we're looking at food and nutrition staff will be packing up the week of the February 15th to the 19th, and then the week starting the 22nd of February, food and nutrition staff will work from home for a couple of weeks. The remaining staff in our current building will pack up the week of the 22nd through the 25th. We will load food and nutrition trucks, which we have 3 trucks down there, on the 26th, and on the 27th, a Saturday, we'll pay staff overtime, select staff to offload into the warehouse. On the 29th of February, they do the final inspection and we get our certificate for occupancy. On the 29th, we'll go into the facility and start moving the furniture into place. We have Mike Geisinger building conference tables for the long conference room that you see in the far left of your picture, as well as the kiosk in the lobby, and a couple of other fixes that we'll actually haul down to Las Vegas. So we'll have several staff, including myself, that will be down there the week of basically until the 4th. Hopefully we'll be done earlier than that, but that week of the 29th through the 4th, and doing the install and getting everything up and operational. We'll have IT staff that are going down and getting everything, all the switches and all the magic words that you guys use to get into place to make things hum and work. And so then basically from the 4th until the 29th, staff will have that time to be able to kind of get up operational, use the facilities, get everything set up, including the laboratories. We're proposing to have the next board meeting. We'll have a conference call board meeting because we have to deal with hemp regs. But the actual next physical face-to-face board meeting will be in Las Vegas on March 29th, and we'll promote a ribbon cutting program and invite legislators and anybody that's been connected with it, and the governor to come participate in that ribbon cutting. We'll have a reception and an open house of the new facilities and look at the labs and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of gives you an idea of the timeline, and at that point it'll be completely, fully operational. As you look at the schematic, you can see the metrology lab. That equipment, I believe, is on order and coming. Mark can touch on basically what that is and what that will look like. The petroleum laboratory will be larger, roughly by a third, which is significant. You'll see that we have much improved meeting space for the Board of Agriculture and for other trainings and meetings down in that facility. We'll have, we think, an enforcement officer, which Flint can talk about because we have a work program going in February to IFC to bring a physician on board, and he can give you more details on that in his update. And the only thing that's different in what you're looking at currently is that where we have a storage room identified, that'll actually be a food and nutrition program administrator's office. But we're on task. Things should be moving along, and it's going to be finished on the schedule that we released, which was sometime in March. We hope, we'll be in it early March, but by the time we do the big public ta-da. So, other couple of things to be aware of that I'm working on. I'm currently serving as the president of the Western United States Ag Trade Association. So per their board and their funding, I will be going to Vietnam in April on a trade mission, and we'll go to Hanoi and then to Ho Chi Minh City. And Jeff will be attending as well, representing as our trade specialist. I did have to give him an education that it was shocking to read the itinerary and realize that we are staying at Hanoi Hilton, and that does have a significance. And he said, well, it says it's got really good reviews, boss. I said, well, there's some guys that might argue that with you, but he's up to speed on that now. But well, we are actually staying at the Hanoi Hilton, the new one.
I can't control everything.
Dale will be doing an overview, kind of a little bit in terms of what we're headed into in terms of budget timelines. Though we've basically got to get our policy BERs put together for proposal to you at that March meeting in Las Vegas. So when we're at the meeting in Las Vegas, and hopefully we want to get those out to you well in advance. We haven't even begun to draft them. I can say high level generally what you'll see. You won't see a big omnibus bill like we had last time. I think that's enough to last my career. So we'll have some pretty distinct, broken out things where we feel like we have some needs. And the process will be that we'll submit that after you take a look at them and give us the thumbs up through the process and into the governor's office. And again, they're not real or official or actually happen until they get approval through the governor's office and are actually forwarded, because our bill drafts that we submit are actually executive branch bill drafts that come out. And I think the way it sends today, they're going to have 110 BDRs that they're going to be able to move forward out of the executive branch plus 5 that are specific to the governor above that. I'll be in D.C. in 2 weeks. And Megan Brown will be joining me on that trip, and we'll be talking about the National Association of State Department of Agriculture and some of the policy there. Megan's been working with some of our neighboring states and put together language regarding public lands, range, those kind of things, to get that actually on the policy book for NASDA, because that's not been something that's been really on their radar. NASDA's been pretty heavy, centralized U.S. ag, Ohio, Iowa kind of agriculture production in terms of their policy. So we're trying to put some things in there that are specific to the unique issues out in the West. A lot of what Megan and the surrounding states have put together has come from the Western Governors Association and some of the other groups, Public Lands Committee, so on and so forth, in terms of getting some talking points for them. We'll be meeting with, of course, all the Nevada congressional leadership. And then lastly, we have been fighting the video link conference stuff. Last fall, the video system went down. We've gone through IFC, got approval from the money. Now we're trying to get purchasing to sign off on the purchases, and basically we'll have a new video conference system that will come into the Sparks headquarters, and then whatever parts and pieces we have left over, we're going to try to utilize to the best of our ability in the outlying Elko and Las Vegas offices to improve. This is actually a Skype system that we're using today, and I noticed that some folks have commented about how much clearer it is than our old system. We're hoping the new system will be that clear, but you won't have the constant intermittent in and out breaking. We continue to work on that to try to get that fixed, but we've got about roughly $60,000 of investment in the new video conference system that went out on us in this room, which is why the December meeting was postponed and why we're having it now. So with that, any questions you may have for me? That's kind of the highlights, other than you'll get into more detail on a lot of those topics as your division folks do their presentations.
Any questions for the director?
I have one.
Yes, Mr. Spratly.
You know, Director Barbie and I talked about this situation throughout the state, actually, where the fences along right-of-ways are being lowered below what is a legal fence. And I was just wondering, ask the question of the director, what's happening from the department side?
And I would actually defer that to Flint's presentation.
Okay.
If you don't mind. He'll have the latest, greatest on that. I know that they've gone out and at a high level, I know they've gone out and photographed, done investigation, and made contact with NDOT. Can give you more details on that.
I do have a letter written from the Hooper family in regards to this, because that's happening. The Mountain City Highway is having a new pipeline coming down. They're putting a new fence in, and it's going to be way lower than a legal fence for wildlife concerns.
Roger.
So I'll pass that out just so people have a background as to what the concern
absolutely.
is on that fence issue.
I know Flint and Blaine have been working on that issue, and he can address it in his presentation.
If you wish, Boyd, I can address it right now.
It's up to you. Yes, go ahead, Flint.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Flint Wright, Director NDA. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's
all right. Yeah, that is the case in a lot of cases. We've actually been talking about it. The fence north of Elko on the Mountain City Highway, where that pipeline's going in, honestly, it's not necessary. There's two different scenarios there, Boyd. That one is definitely due to the pipeline, and it looks like a contractor really is just frankly taking advantage of some folks up there. We got everything from, wires strung up this high, and, so I think that's actually a separate issue that Blaine and I need to address. The fences that we worry about are essentially what they consider wildlife-friendly fences. And pretty familiar with these fences because they had us put a whole bunch of them in after the Murphy Complex fire. Essentially, that's the bottom wire being 26 inches off the ground, and you get a huge spread from the top, and the second wire, that's essentially so antelope can slip through it, or coyotes, and then they get kind of a tight grouping of the bottom three wires. No, that kind of fencing doesn't follow under statute what is called legal fence. We've taken this up with DOT, and they seem to disagree with us. Their feelings is that when that legal fence definition is really applied to cropland. I disagree because as a cattle rancher, I think your calf crops on the other side of that fence, and that still should apply. We are going to be looking for an AG's ruling on this. We haven't brought it to Dennis yet, but we will be in the near future. So that's kind of where we're at with it. We do have pictures, we do have reports, both types of those fences. So.
I think my concern is that the Department of Transportation basically has yielded to the concerns of NDOW. And in my mind, this department is a co-equal member of state government. And I think, if we come out, we should have every bit as much say in what NDOT does as NDOT does. And it's a human safety factor involved there, because if cattle get on, it's a right-of-way fence, it's along the highway. So if we have livestock, we have the same situation we have with wild horses out on Highway 50, or have had in the past. So it's,
one of the
there's a lot of concern about this in the industry.
And one of the questions I think, and where we may need to get Dennis to help us in terms of kind of weigh in on the issue is, if NDOT builds a wildlife-friendly fence, which is not a legal fence by definition in statute, does NDOT or the state as a whole then bear liability of that? So, and I know you wouldn't have an answer for us right now, but after this, maybe you and I can sidebar and try to go through that a little bit, unless you do have an answer, in which case.
I'd be happy to discuss it with you, Director, perhaps on a break.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Paris.
Yes, going along further, just a few years ago when we purchased the ranch, it became a sheep ranch also. And we started putting net wire along the highway to keep the sheep off the highway, and NDOT came in there and just blew up and says you can take that net wire out of there, private property, that the highway cuts the ranch in half. And I told them, I says, I don't want people getting killed by a bunch of sheep on the highway, and this fence will not hold sheep. And when I didn't take it down, they came and took it down. I was like,
I heard that.
Yeah. Well, I urge everybody to be careful of what you say today about NDOT. You may find somebody visiting your house tomorrow. Be careful.
No, I mean, these are legitimate issues.
They are, and I'm joking because they're untouchable, but we need to bring it to their attention.
You know, I mean, the thing is that the public safety is the issue here.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, I mean, there's a lot of grass on the right away. You know, everybody used to run their milk cows on the right away. You know, that was common practice in these valleys. So, you know, that's not the issue. You know, we want the livestock where they belong, so it's not a public health issue.
Yeah.
Public safety.
I'll follow up with our DAG, and then I'll set a meeting with Rudy, the director of NDOT, and we'll just start there.
Thank you.
And I know that Flint's talked to some NDOT staff, but I'll bring it to Rudy's level so he's very aware that there's some great concerns, and I can use the letter and then each story as examples along with what we know is going on around the city.
That's, no offense to anybody, but that's where it needs to go, Jim, because I mean, we've talked to the mid-level staff, and not on just this issue, but on 100 other issues when it comes to the fences, and it doesn't go anywhere. So I mean, it needs to go to director level.
Okay. One quick thing to report on that Jim talked about Megan and her new role, and I just wanted to give everybody a brief update. But in November, the Nevada Cattlemen's Association, I personally was invited by our state department, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Director Ted Cook, to attend a invasive weed summit in Boise, Idaho. And at the last minute, I turned down the invitation because the state of Nevada was already sending a crew from the Department of Agriculture. That was the first reason. But the second reason was we were starting to get input that the invitation list was a mix and match and pick and choose who was going to get invited. I'm glad I didn't go, you guys. Jamie came back with a great report. The reason, my first suspicion about who they were picking and choosing is Jamie was surprised who wasn't there. Even the state of Idaho, where it was held, their Department of Ag wasn't there, but yet a Department of Ag from Wyoming, their weed person was there. Very strange. But she said, you know who the most people were in there? Department of Wildlife, Nevada. That made it even stranger, so I'm glad. Important thing is, a couple of ranchers from the northern Humboldt County, Elko County area, that's a Barrick-owned ranch. Boyd, you know who they are. They were invited, and they got most of the show as the official cattle ranchers representing Nevada. But I still was not going to go, you guys. So I wanted to bring that. Jim and I have been meeting. We're going to have a personal meeting with Mr. Cook. The disappointing thing about the whole thing, you guys, is the states all get together. They have their own plans set up for their own issues, and they get along great. So, but the main emphasis of this meeting, everybody, was the fact that there is a report that was put out called the Reasoner Report, which blanketly said grazing is bad for sage grouse habitat. And it's that it's that simple of a statement. They don't go on and talk about that, yeah, you know, a long time ago it probably was, before the Taylor Grazing Act. You know, there was a lot of cattle and a lot of sheep in one area, but today with proper management, range management, that's not the case, and that word wasn't getting out. So I'm glad we avoided it, but Megan, Jim, these are kind of the things we've got to look forward to. And Jim and Ted Cook wants to have a meeting because we're basically sticking with Jim, and his crew's done a wonderful job really holding their guns on this thing and making a point that proper grazing is good for sage grouse habitat.
And as that'll kind of fall under Megan's side of the plant and industry, under Robert's authority, we may bring Megan into that actual sit down as well, and that way, because I know Megan's worked previously with Ted, and we can get her introduced as our new lead in those invasive issues on public lands.
Cool. Okay. Looks like number 5, administration. The 2016 Economic Analysis of Nevada Agriculture Summary by Tatiana Vukovic. Tatiana, you have the floor. This is for information only. Okay, good. This is the handout.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tatiana Vukovic. I'm the Information and Education Officer for Nevada Department of Agriculture. And I'm really nervous to give a speech usually, and I'm really nervous right now, but this is going to be really quick.
Tatiana?
Yes.
I'll help you relieve your tension. You're not giving a speech.
There you go.
You're giving a report.
Quick overview of
There you go.
agriculture report that is almost ready to be officially introduced to the public. This is going to be our 3rd annual report, it's always the main question is what are we doing with this report and why we are producing the report. And the main goal of the report usually is to collect information on agriculture industry. It's a high-level information that we are collecting because you are people who are living the industry, and we need to kind of summarize that. And then produce information for the folks who don't know much about it, kind of to educate them, give them information that they're looking for, and also to promote the industry. So that's the main goal of the report. This year report is going to have 3 different sections. The first section is going to be the overview, high-level overview of inventory. What do we have here? What is the agriculture in Nevada all about? Number of farm operations, value of productions, cash receipts from the sales, employment, and also exporting information, or how well we are in the global market. These information are going to be just the basic data, and then we will be looking at certain trends and how well we are doing within Nevada agriculture. So is it production increasing? Is it downsizing? Kind of general overview. The second portion of the report is going to be economic impact. Some people call that economic contribution. So basically, the information that we will be presenting is what is the contribution or importance of agriculture industry for Nevada economy. So the measures of that, and I'm pretty sure that you are kind of familiar with that, is economic effect through direct, indirect, and induced impact that industry is producing for the state. So direct is directly agriculture production, what's the value of that, what are the jobs that agriculture production is creating, and what is the income that folks are receiving within the industry. Indirect effect would be everything that goes into that production. So all the inputs that are coming, definitely you will create the value by purchasing these inputs. Certain jobs will be created as a result of that, and income will be paid to these employees. And also, the moment you sell the products to processing facilities or restaurants, additional value is created as well as the jobs. That's called indirect effect, and then each household is going to do some spendings, and that's basically induced effect. Because also jobs and certain value is going to be created through that linkages. How I see that and why we try to do that is basically it's measure of your investment. So for each dollar that you invest, you will get some return back. And it's kind of nice measure for people to see what is the importance. The other day I was looking at GDP numbers for each of the industries and trying to kind of get some information for that. And the interesting fact was I was looking at the GDP values and increase for each industry between 2012 and 2013. And for example, the industry that has the biggest increase in GDP or the market value of all the products and services that they do is retail trade. The second industry was agriculture. So I don't think that people talk that much about it, but that definitely does contribute to economy as a whole. So after that second part, when we kind of calculate the economic impact, overall economic impact, the third part is going to be analysis of all the components of agriculture sector. And that kind of came as a result of Governor's Conference on agriculture, where we kind of tried to tie together producers as well as manufacturing and processing, as well as transportation, distribution companies, and the markets that producers are selling products to. So this part, the third part of the report, is going to be in-depth analysis of livestock industry, in-depth analysis of plant industry. Then we will be looking at the manufacturing and processing sector, kind of creating nice little maps to see what type of processing industry do we have in Nevada. So I can tell you from the top of my head, like for example, when it comes to number of establishment in food and processing sector, the majorities are of course in urban counties. However, one of the top 5 is commercial bakeries. Why is that kind of important? It's important because 50% or even more than 50% of input that goes into commercial bakeries, they have to import from outside of Nevada, because there is no products in Nevada that they can be purchasing and using. So then we will be looking into processing, meat processing and slaughtering facilities, and tie that to livestock industry. So it's going to be really in-depth analysis of each of these specific industries, and then we will be talking about food distribution, retailing, and marketing, because that's really important part of it. If you look at it, food and beverages are sold everywhere. There is a market everywhere. If you go to a gas station, you try to put the gas in your car, and you go inside, you will see that half of that is basically food that they sell there. So we will try to kind of combine all this information and try by the industry to see what is the economic importance or what is the economic contribution of each of these specific industry and how big that is. We'll try to measure it. And then I guess the idea would be at the end, because it's a big report and it's lots of pages to read, and of course not everybody finds everything interesting, so the main idea would be then try to get some, it's almost like a flashcards or just a specific points that we will have on a state level and for each county. And then if you would like to just see specific county, you will be able to look at the county and not go through 300 pages of somewhat boring report. But still, if we put the number on a flashcard, we will say, for more information, you will have to look at 350 page of agriculture report, just in case. So this is the quick overview. Any questions?
So much for not being comfortable speaking. Mr. Anderson.
This is going to sound pretty stupid, but is this the first time we've ever done this?
Well, no, but it's new in that we keep taking it to a different level. So one of the things that Tatiana has been doing for the last couple of years is trying to continually update from the first one that we did in 2013, which came out of the Northern Nevada Development Authority. Then we took it and ran with it from that point. Tatiana's been the first that produced the 14 and the 15 report, and now we continue to try to expand that. but we maintain what we've done in the past, so you do have year-to-year comparables, so that it's basically like an industry almanac that you'll be able to go back and you'll be able to see, here's where we were, and here's where we've come, and really, I think it has great potential to be utilized as an industry by the industry to give them some opportunity in terms of forecasting, and really having Nevada-specific data to make business decisions.
One of the things I really like about this is that it's going to give all of us that are involved some talking points. Because it's one thing to have a report that's hundreds of pages long, but if you have some that you can, if you're in front of a legislator or just people within the state that are asking questions or aren't clear on the details, I think something like this is a great idea.
Dennis, could you hold up that book that you're so kindly borrowed? just so everybody knows, those were left on our desks at one of the board meetings, and it's one of those, I don't hang on to very much stuff because it gets pretty, you're overflowing in paper, right? But I stuck that in my briefcase and I've kept it, only because it's nice to go when you go to a meeting that sometimes people kind of are a little bit misinformed about how their county sits in the scheme of agriculture. This is really a cool book. You need to look at it. You'll really find out that there's some counties that you don't, like Washoe, Clark County leads the state in agriculture, total production, believe it or not. Washoe County second. But what I wanted to ask you, Tatiana, when you do the report, the one thing this book is lacking is on the very first page it has a summary of all the counties listed. It's just general ag, boom. That's why Clark pops up there. It's including nurseries, everything. So obviously it's food production. It's going to be, but it'd be nice to have sections that say what are the cattle in those individual, cattle sales for that county, corn, those kind of things. I think that would be some neat, and it sounds like that's where you're headed.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes. Mrs. Morrison.
Question for you. Is there any effort to also include a historical context for all of this? Both for, especially food production, less so because that's more of a current thing, but for irrigated agriculture and as well as livestock production? Because you have the data going back to all the ag reports.
We can accommodate that.
I think it would be very helpful because especially on livestock production, we're down to probably a quarter or less of what we used to produce. This state was a tremendous livestock producer. One of the biggest meat packing plants was right here in Fremont and on the West Coast. So it would be nice to have that historical context. I think we need to have it in some of our conversations. Meg needs it as much as anybody.
Sure, we can accommodate that.
Any other questions for Tatiana? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good job. Next item is the European Trade Business Development Mission update from Jeff Sutich, the International Marketing Coordinator. This is information only as well. And folks, you do have a written report on this if you'd like to refer to it.
Good morning. Does everybody have a calendar?
Yeah,
got it. Right. Okay. So our tentative plan for this trade mission is going to be October 16th through 25th, or 26th, arriving on October 16th and departing on October 26th. And if you see on the calendar, what I'm trying to do is sandwich it in between two other trade missions. We work with the U.S. LGE, which is the U.S. Livestock Genetic Exports Program. So for cattle producers that are interested in exporting cattle, we're doing a trade mission to Turkey prior to that. So anyone interested on that can participate there and get trade support there. Then the NDA trade mission is more informative and a business development tour. And then following it with a WUSADA activity for anybody that's on the NDA trip that might be interested more in kind of food ingredients or have food ingredient type products that are interested in exporting that to Europe as well. So what we've done so far is we're working with the U.S. embassies in Germany, Czech Republic, and Croatia. And they've, so far, Germany and Czech Republic, they've They said that they want to work with us. They'll do a market briefing for everybody once we're there. Not sure yet what location in Germany, but they want to know more who's going to be participating before they decide what avenues to go and which tours to do there. But it'll most likely be food and beverage processing tours, farm tours, and if we've got that livestock component from Turkey, they'll accommodate and try to do meetings for the livestock groups that are part of that. Same with the Czech Republic. The embassy guy in Germany is also in charge of the Czech Republic, so it'll be embassy market briefing, food, beverage processing, farm tours, and then livestock tours as well. In Croatia, the gal that we're working with there has been really well with communicating with us, and she's got a list of cities and locations in Croatia that she thinks would be very beneficial. Again, she wants to know more what types of businesses are going to be participating, so when we get more down in the weeds, we can target it more. But she's given us the names of a couple cities and a couple companies that she'd like us to look at meeting with, and I'm going to attempt not to slaughter the names and let Tatiana make fun of me with the correct pronunciations. So,
I'm waiting.
for initially, the capital of Croatia is Zagreb, and she thinks that there's a lot of good ag-related companies around there and surrounding cities in that area, kind of an agriculture hub, right? And those cities are called Petrinja, Vrbovec, yep, Varaždin, Čakovec.
Now, wait a minute, Tatiana, you didn't pronounce that right.
I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. I like it.
Koprivnica.
Koprivnica.
And so those are some cities around, some smaller towns around the big city of Zagreb where there's a lot of agriculture production that she was thinking we should target. Then about 4 hours away from there is another city called Osijek. And then Split is another city that she was thinking, but that's more towards the coast if we're looking more towards like beverage manufacturing, wineries, olive oil type productions, kind of fruits and things like that over there. And some of the food processing groups that they've targeted for us. One is pretty massive. I'm impressed with that she's able to get tours of. It's called the Agrokor Group. Agrokor. They've got 60,000 employees in Croatia with 24 different brands, 50,000 acres of vegetable and fruit land that they grow, or I guess arable land that they're growing fruit and vegetables on, 20 cattle ranches, and they have products that range from alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverage manufacturing, all sorts of meat processing and manufacturing, production, retail outlets, fertilizer. It's just a massive company. I think would be a great opportunity to meet with them and see what they do and how they target the European consumer as well as who they're exporting to and those types of products that are getting taken from them. Other companies, I won't get into in depth what they do, but there's Gavrilovic, Vindia, Podravka, and Danica. Okay, so those are the different companies, and it's a range of food processing and ag production. Two other companies, Pipo and Čakovec. And Čakovec, they're a animal feed processing company. So they do all sorts of feed processing for chicken, cows, pheasants, and pigs. And then Croatia is interested in doing a livestock component for getting high quality U.S. livestock to help support their genetics there.
Is there a market for wild horses?
We can get approved to do a wild horse trade mission.
Please go off the record. Mr. Scrowley did not ask for the floor, therefore a statement is not allowed.
So the final part, we're trying to put together a budget. There's still some components missing. The internal travel once we're there to get from the hotel to the different tours or from country to country. We're still trying to figure out and have a couple travel agencies working with us to try to find cheaper options or efficient options on how to do that. Do we take trains from place to place? Can we have someone make it easy and just drive us? So we're trying to figure out what the cost on that is. So on the low end, we're looking per company probably $5,000 to $7,000. This includes an activity fee that helps support us coming over there, which on the low end would be that these two trade missions that I'm sandwiching between would take our main travel expenses because they would cover us to get there so that it wouldn't have to come from this activity. And then on the high end, probably around $10,000 per company. If those trade missions fall through and we can't do it and it's completely having to be funded by this activity.
What would that set per individual?
Per individual. Yeah. And to kind of give you a comparison on activity we did with the governor's office to Canada in 2014, they had a activity fee of about $5,000 to $7,000 per company or per person per company to participate on that, and the overall cost for that, 4-day, I think it was 4 or 5 day activity there in Canada, ended up being about $15,000 per company from the feedback I got from companies for the costs that were associated with that. So this being less than that and an 11-day activity in throughout 3 countries, I think is pretty good.
And the way that Jeff is trying to frame this is it would be an all-inclusive fee. So where, like on the governor's trade mission, you had to pay to play, so it was like $5,000 or $7,000 just to be allowed to be in the trade mission, and then you had to cover all your own travel and all that kind of stuff. This would be a one-time fee that would cover, basically you would show up, everything would be handled off of that initial fee. Probably once they get these numbers tied in, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, we're going to try to basically put out, here's the opportunity. Please reach out if you're interested in participating in the activity. We'll have it set at a base number. We'll look for a deposit on that. Of course, this would be a business travel for the folks that are participating in terms of the tax, and so all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. But we'll see what kind of response we get and go from there. If we get enough of a response that looks like it would fly, then we would move forward. If we don't, then we obviously wouldn't.
And we can really tailor it down a bit because these numbers for, say, per diem for the food, per diem for the hotel is with the government rate, which is really high, and it's you're staying at a 5-star hotel, you're eating at 5-star hotel type meals, so we can really, if the participants don't need to have that be wine and dine like that, we can have a more realistic, in my opinion, lodging and still have a good place to lodge and food. We can really get that cost down quite a bit. So,
anything else, Jeff?
That's it.
Okay, I got 3 items here I want you to address.
All right.
Okay, because the cattle industry is watching this very closely. I'm going to talk to you about 3 items: South America, the dollar, and the COOL program.
Okay.
First of all, it's the South, and I'm going to just throw these all out at you, because I think they're all intertwined with what you're doing. With all these trips that you're taking to these different countries, and we've seen lots of these great trade missions, out of this, the only thing public to come out is we finally opened up trade for beef with Colombia. Right? No. Is it Colombia?
They're open to our exports.
No, it just opened up. It was announced the other day. They finally negotiated a trade tariff program.
Where it is.
What are some of the other big countries down there? Chile?
Colombia, Brazil,
Colombia.
Argentina?
Colombia.
Okay.
Yeah, it just came across the wire about 2 weeks ago. So I have not seen any trips to South America in any of this. The other thing, remember, I'm going to throw these out before you answer. Okay. The dollar, okay, if you look, you're aware of the decline in cattle prices over the last 6 months. One of those key reasons was the dollar. Okay, it's getting very hard to get our products over there with the way the dollar's reacting. And guess what? We all cheered the COOL program going down a big pile of flames, right? Well, guess what? Now we got the fear of meat coming into this country. And if the public's reacting, I saw some posts on Facebook when that cool program, and the public is reacting. They're saying, thank God I've got a local source of meat that I know where it's coming from. So these are kind of fears now of, now we're going to see an import. And we all know where that's going to go. Every one of us sitting here knows when you start talking to Canada or anybody, we want your meat into here, we know where that's going to go. It's going to go disease, and the American producer is going to get blamed for it, just like the mad cow. So I need you to cover these areas because these are concerns.
So for South America, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Argentina is a pretty big producer, and they've closed off imports. And so because of that, I think it's hurting their exports. So it's opening up an opportunity for some of these other countries that might have been taking some of that beef. I actually have an amazing USADA intern. Her name's Lynn Dodge. She's doing some amazing research, in my opinion, on some Latin American countries specific for exports for beef. In about 2 or 3 weeks, I'll be attending the USLGE annual meeting to try to propose to get funding for a trade mission, and we're looking at South America for that to do. And Colombia is the one that she's really looking at right now to try to see if we can get some of our beef down there, and see if this program will fund that to help get our Nevada guys down there to promote beef down there. She's also looking at Chile and Argentina if it opens up again. For cool, I think it'll open up the market or opportunities for individual companies to show transparency that this is, we're selling this beef and it's from the U.S. There's nothing we can do, I think, on a government standpoint because it was turned down. The U.S. or the feds decided, we're going to open it up so Canadian beef, Mexican beef, U.S. beef, you can't discriminate against that. That opens it up. Or if the consumer's really wanting to see that transparency, that gives our U.S. companies, it'll be more expensive to show that, but it'll give them the ability to maybe target that market to the consumer. Like, look, my beef is local. It is from the U.S. Label it, prove that, have that transparency and maybe they can get a premium to show that it's U.S. beef. And what was the other one?
Well, I want to know what you're going to do about the dollar.
I think you should start traveling because it's high and you can get some good deals overseas. No, it's difficult across all export industries for U.S. companies, and exports as a whole have really declined because of the high U.S. dollar, and that's definitely a worry, and it is definitely something to talk about when we're talking to these different buyers overseas. And you really got to say, hey, I know it's more expensive, and it's looking like it's going to get more expensive because of the world economic issues that are going on and everybody moving into the dollar thinking it's a safer asset. But let's look at the quality of it. So a lot of non-agriculture industries have really declined in their exports. A lot of agriculture industries have declined in their exports, but food and agriculture as a whole is still increasing and is still doing well, especially to Southeast Asia countries, China, because their regulations on their products for local products still aren't strong enough to make the consumer feel good about eating it and providing that type of food for their families. So they're still, even though the price has gone up because of the dollar, they're still importing tons of food and agricultural products from Western countries that have strong regulations and ensure that those products are healthy for their families. And so I think there's still a lot of opportunities. While it's going up, it'll be harder with the negotiations, and then it might not do as much, but I still think there's a lot.
Here's a task I think it's really important. It's for all of us to grasp, and I think the Department of Ag should look at this seriously. While you're bouncing all over Croatia, and I think it's really important, because when the dollar does change, and hopefully it will, we're going to be prepared to export to those markets. But here's something where we need to work on. Right now, I believe in America, our big corporation, large quantity meat producers, our meat is the safest it's ever been, okay? In fact, on the contrary, if you heard what happened locally with an establishment that we visited, they shut down because of an illness, okay? And this is why all these issues have been raised about food safety, okay? The FSMA, these kind of things have been raised. And I think we've got to, because all of us sitting here that are cattle, and I'm just picking on the cattle guys, we can't survive with the little guys processing our meat. We can't. We got to go to the big guys to get our meat out of this state. And I think right now we've got to really push, because depending on what publication you read, beef is up internally in America, the consumption of meat. So I think we need to get on that and drive it home and start showing to people that our IBPs and national beef companies out there, it's safe, it's good meat, it's good quality. Because in the meantime, while we can't export, we've got to concentrate on keeping our folks at home. And that's what scares me the most, especially if we start seeing imports.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of comments on that. Recognize that in Jeff's role, WUSADA as a whole promotes where those companies fall within the West. But the way that the what are they called? The trade associations are split up around the United States. That Fed money is tied to where those corporate headquarters are. And so if we don't have IBP falling into the WUSADA region, then WUSADA is not allowed to promote that, and they have to go through the region which they're provided for. So that's where it's a struggle for us, because the Nevada beef, as it were, that we would be promoting, and I get what you're saying, we're promoting U.S. beef, and that's done in a general stance. Anytime you've got those USA pavilions at these different shows, and I mean, we're talking shows from names I can't pronounce that you've been to in China to a lot of Asian, and then now starting to look at the European side of things, because those markets are starting to open up, and that hasn't normally been an opportunity for us. So from the beef standpoint, that's where it's kind of a struggle. And then tying that to what we're proposing in terms of a business trip. The business trip we proposed is to get the ball rolling where Nevada starts playing in that arena, where we've never played in that arena. All the states around us are going out and doing trade missions and are trying to push their products, and it's specific, food, agriculture in general, and that's something that we haven't done. So what we tried to do, and what I directed Jeff to do, is to do something that's general, that would be more attractive, that obviously isn't just beef driven, that we could have anything from Sticks Cattle to Timmy Candy Manufacturing that would want to join in on the trade mission to get the best opportunity to get our feet wet and start the ball rolling, basically, is where this would start. And then Jeff and I have already talked that if we get some success here, then we would start doing more targeted, narrow type stuff. And we've talked about some beef stuff in Japan. We talked about some beef stuff in South America. But basically something that's more general, that's going to be more generally attractive, to try to see if we have enough interest in Nevada by general producers to get something started in that direction. But when Jeff's traveling with WUSADA, and overarching, we're constantly promoting all U.S. product. Then secondarily, Western United States ag trade specific product, because we'll have those businesses that'll be participating in that trade mission. And understanding how that funding works, that's all federal funding that's supporting the WUSADA side, which includes the travel that Jeff's doing through the WUSADA program. And then this would be different in that this would be the first one that would be self-funded through investment by the Nevada producers that are going on or being involved in. Just to kind of frame the kind of two different topics.
When I travel with WUSADA, we have to target the region. So as we're working together with the 13 western states, it's okay, what's good for our state, but what's good for the region when we're trying to find these activities. So an example is in December, there was a trade show, it was an ingredients trade show in France. So we went there was about 10 companies that participated, and 4 of them were Nevada companies. And so not all of them were Nevada companies, but I always try to target, when I'm helping with an activity, target the Nevada guys first to give them the first chance to sign up for it. And WUSADA can help cover 50% of those expenses that will cost them to get there, their food, their hotel, the cost of the booth, and that type of stuff at these trade shows. But from that event, the Nevada companies specifically told me that They're projecting within the next year about $600,000 worth of increased sales, export sales, from that trade show. So it's and then the other companies also were making deals too, but specifically for Nevada guys, they're making money off of this, and so by bringing them back in, they're being able to help expand and diversify and create new jobs. One of the companies is now hiring 2 more international sales representatives for his company to help target Europe because of it. So that's trying little by little to help expand it through these types of trade association activities, because they'll help cover a lot of those fees so it doesn't come directly from the state.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your work, Jeff. I wasn't being critical at all. In the world of market trading, when you talk about laying off the board and those kind of things at the Chicago Merc, there's a term called your basis, and that is what's really happening on the board back there and what's really happening in the real life back home in the state of Nevada or whatever state. So I don't want you to lose track of what the basis is. What's really going on in the real world. Thank you. Any more questions for Jeff? Thank you, Beth. All right, we have a fiscal services update from Dale. You ready, Dale?
You guys want to take a break? I gotta hand out some stuff.
Oh, no.
I got more paper for you guys. So.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take about a 5-minute, use the restroom, some coffee. We'll be right back.
Dave, I heard you talking about your bird call thing.
Yeah.
So you did some of that in the past, and if you vary the times.
The numbers are sexy.
Everybody came to hear your.
We gotta get a little pen.
The strong dollar, we should be selling beef to Ecuador. They used him. They're on the American currency.
There you go.
Oh, we gotta wait on the director.
Okay, are we ready? Are we on record? Okay. We're back on record. Now, you know, gang, I really feel bad. We went around and went over everybody, our roll call, and we're missing a guy today.
Yes, we are.
And gosh darn it, I feel bad because that guy went in for open heart surgery a couple weeks ago.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, he's doing really well. He's doing good, and it didn't sound like it was too much of a. But Charlie has a history there, and we hope everything's okay. But it sounds okay. So
he was up. I talked to Colby a week ago. I think that we're over there, and he said he's doing real good. He wasn't quite home yet, but within the next day, while he was still in ICU, he was up and walking, and they had him putting him through the paces, and he had a big grin on his face, and looked like in the picture online that he was giving the nurse hell. So.
Yeah.
It's Charlie.
Did he have a glass of wine or something?
Vodka.
Wanted to be here, but.
And he called in and said he wanted to be here, just couldn't make it.
All right.
Not quite there yet.
No problem. Okay. So, Dale, you're on.
All righty. I handed out the 2 reports that I typically hand out. I've got the revenue detail report and the expenditure report. They're double-sided this time. The printer copied the card. Double-sided reports. I'm going to start with the revenue detail report, the 2016 revenue detail report. Kind of highlight a few things. The one thing that I want to point out is if you look, for example, on the first page for the child nutrition budget, 2691, you'll see a GL number or a revenue code. It's 2501. Just for interpretation's sake, those are general funds. So when you guys see 2501 in these budget accounts, those are general funds that have been appropriated to us. And then the other one, again, you look at the first page, child nutrition, you look at the 2511, that's the beginning reserve for each budget account. So if we go to page, let's go to page 4, just typical ones that you guys are interested in. You'll look under agriculture registration and enforcement for plant, 4545. You'll see that the beginning reserve balance was about $1.6 million that we started off with, which was a lot higher than we projected because we had salary savings. And going forward, we also were able to lower, again, we talked about this earlier, we were able to lower the state's assessment on the department. It went from about $850,000 per year to now it's $171,000 this year, and then it'll be $94,000 next year. So we took off some of the pressure for some of these budget accounts trying to fund that cost allocation part. And if you look at 4546, that's the livestock inspection account. The beginning balance is getting smaller. It was $209,000. So we have a lot of pressure on that budget account right now. It's going to bump up because this is the year of the brand re-recording fees. We get about $400,000, at least if you look down at the revenue code 3747 for the re-recording fees. To date, we've collected $332,000. We budgeted for $412,000. So that will bump up that reserve. But then for the next 4 years after that, it will decline quite a bit. So, so we need to work on trying to kind of buffer up that reserve balance going forward in the future so we can support that program and allow it to do the stuff that it's statutorily required to do. And then I want to point out on page 6 in your report that we set.
Can I ask one question, but going back to the livestock inspection, 4546?
Yeah.
And going down to vet biologics fees, we have no incoming projected. I mean, and then it goes up from there. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah. Okay. So we have in this budget account, and we have the 2 new fees were the commercial manufactured feed fees, and that's actually a mistake that not that it's in here, but it's a mistake that when the budget closed, when the legislature closed that budget, that they kept that money in that budget account. So we actually have to go back to IFC, take it out. We actually set up its own budget account, which is 4541, which I'll go to in a few minutes on that one. And then the vet biologics, they asked us to come back and resubmit a new budget. So I think that number is going to be significantly smaller.
Well, I think that's the one we got to come to the board to approve before we ever do it. It's going to be 0. And basically the legislature, their policy wasn't talking to their budget building. And so I think they came in and said, oh, well, we guess from the original paperwork that we put in that we were going to be a revenue of $112,000. Well, the reality is it's revenue of 0 until we have the program established. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, both of those. So in April, we have
fees going because the feed one is one of them that we will be approving here shortly, and we're doing the regs on, which is a different.
Yeah, and that one actually, if you look on page 4, this is you'll see a budget account 4541. And that's actually been set up for the commercial feed program, even though we haven't started collecting anything. We had to get it set up so we actually did start collecting things. And right now, we've just predicted a budget of $9,600. Best guess, we're still working out those types of numbers and so forth. So it's changed quite a bit. And I'll let the program staff talk about that a little bit later. So you have that going on. And then the last one I wanted to point out on revenues is 4551, and that's on page, if you go to page 8, and you look at the revenue code 3602, That's not labeled correctly. The legislature never labeled it correctly. BART has a better title for it. But one of the reasons that this is really for out-of-state metrology testing is what we're doing.
It's going to, well, do you want me
Yeah,
to
go
address
ahead.
this? It's going to be, what we'd like to do is it's going to be metrology fees brought in by the metrology. And we can break that down into in-state and out-of-state fees instead of out-of-state RSA fees. So.
And the ledge is driving that because with the expansion, the update of the Sparks laboratory and the reopening of a Vegas laboratory, which we haven't had for 5 or 6 or 7 years because it's been out of certification, they're wanting to see that by making the investment in the lab and by putting the new equipment down in Las Vegas, that obviously we're going to be generating more revenue. And so they want to be able to track and see that we're getting a return on that investment.
Can I further address that a little bit? And to piggyback on what Jim said, is when we have a metrologist, we have X amount of hours this metrologist can work, be in departmental metrology work or out of the department metrology work, which we generate funds for. So in that X amount of time, if we brought in all that from out of state or all that from in-state, it's a time thing versus where we're getting the money. But we will be generating the money. Medical marijuana is going to start generating us quite a few metrology fees just because the medical marijuana suppliers are actually buying a set of weights that go along with them. So every 2 years, along with doing their scales, we'll be bringing their weights for recalibration. So again, that's more money brought in from the metrology lab.
Yeah, the more accurate out-of-state name would be California fees, right?
Right.
Because that's who we're targeting. Because that's who we can undercut.
But we're going to name that cost allocation CA fees.
So I lied. That wasn't the last thing I was going to talk about on this one. If you guys turn to page 4, on that page, there's the budget account called 4544, Agricultural Research and Promotion. And I know Robert's been in contact with some people on this one. If you look under that, there's a revenue code 3308, which is alfalfa seed assessment. There actually should be a second one there called garlic and onion seed assessment. So, and I really need whoever's in charge of this person. We actually have to respond back to the legislature why we weren't collecting those fees, and we need to kind of re-establish that because it's still on the books. And so when that budget closed, when the legislature staff got to see that, they wanted an explanation of why we weren't collecting those fees. And so we need to do that. And then on the other part, on the spending part, there is a board, and the proper way for them to do it is they need to come up with a budget, and they actually need to come to you guys, present a plan, and you guys need to approve it. So know that that's probably coming up too, and I think Russ is going to address that a little bit later on.
Jim Snyder. Yeah, Russ, did you get anywhere with?
I have, yeah. I can discuss that right now if that's fitting.
Let's try to hold, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, let's try to hold back where we can do that in the plant deal, because then that's where we'll get down deep into the weeds on it.
Perfect. Yep.
Not too deep.
Never deep.
All right. Any other questions for Dale on that item?
Go ahead, Dale. Let's see, and I don't really have too much on the expenditure part. In fact, some of it I'll address in my update, so I'll just go ahead and do my fiscal update real quick. Go ahead. I want to touch upon things that have tended to get the most attention from legislators or the governor's office when we've done these work programs. Jim touched upon this. We did a work program to purchase the video conferencing system. That was actually an emergency work program, and the governor's office worked with us to push that onto the IFC agenda for December. So it's been passed. We're already in the works of making that purchase. And I know Robert's going to touch upon this a little more. We got approved the $60,000 from Health and Human Services to do medical marijuana testing. So that budget account has been set up, and we've actually already billed them for 2 quarters for the work. So we're good. Then, as far as other things that have been a big deal, and Jim has already talked about this, I think Flint will talk about this, is the new Ag Enforcement Officer down in Las Vegas. That's on the February IFC agenda. And actually, it's, and we need to figure this out, on the IFC agenda, it's actually for $119,000. The $43,000 I have listed here is actually just for, once they approve it to the end of June 30th of 2016. I think Budget Office added the second year on there, so hopefully they'll approve it for the 2 years, which is $119,000.
And did we have equipment purchase in that as well?
Yeah, we had some vehicles, used vehicles that were
Right, high boat.
Yeah.
There's a horse trailer too, isn't there, Dale?
I think so.
Thought so, yeah.
So.
And then some big ones that we have coming up. We have a $11 million work program for the February 11th IFC, and this is for the school lunch program. We've talked a little bit, I know Donna will talk about it more later on. We had the Breakfast After the Bell program, which was to encourage more students to participate in the National Breakfast Program. There have been increases in that. That's had a residual effect on the lunch program, so there's been some growth in that program, as well as there's been changes in the reimbursement rate, so that's why that's so big. And then we have the $4 million work program for the school breakfast program, which is directly related to all the growth that's been going on with the general funds that we receive to do the Breakfast After the Bell program. And again, Donnell will expand on that one a little bit more when she does her presentation, I'm sure. And then just future work programs.
Hang on a second, Dale. It's Mr. Anderson.
Before we leave talking about the IFC, just out of curiosity, when do you have to go before them? How much of a variance in your budget before you have to go before them?
Okay. Typically, there's two standards. So basically, if it's over $30,000 and it's more than 10% of your budget, then you have to go to IFC. Or if it's over $75,000, then automatically you have to go, no matter, even if it's less than 10%. So those are the two things that trip things over into that, to the IFC committee meeting. Thank you. Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, and then we have industrial hemp coming up, and I know Robert's going to talk about that a little bit more. The one thing that we're doing right now, fiscal staff, in fact, today is we're working with purchasing, and we're getting a model from the state of Tennessee so that we can expedite the purchasing of seed when people want to have it and have open contracts. So we're working on that, trying to make sure that we have enough stuff going on there. 2018-2019 budget is upon us. We went through the whole year and a half last time. Just seems like it just got done, and now we're ready to start again. So we've given out budget timelines to everybody. We're giving out budget instructions, and we'll be doing the BDRs. The non-fiscal BDRs are actually due May 16th to the governor's budget office, so I'm sure that Jim will be talking about those later on at a future meeting before we go to before we hit the May deadline. As far as contracts go, just the biggest contract that we've had lately is we just redid a contract with Clean Harbors for $180,000. That's a 4-year contract. We've had that contract quite a bit. We went out and rebid it again. They've won again. And that's just to collect unwanted waste from pesticide users, and we have big events in Vegas and Reno to collect that stuff. So that's the biggest one. And then we had some promotional stuff for the food and nutrition program, meal patterns program, with some television stations up here in north and down in south as well. We have some sub-grants going out. We're going to increase the amounts. We inherited the emergency food assistance program from the food commodities merger, when we had that merger on with us, and looking at stuff and talking to the grantees. It's been 20 years since the amount of money that they've gotten has changed, and so we're going to bump that up a little bit this year to actually meet their actual budget needs. We actually opened it up so they actually would present budgets to us, and we found out that they have we've been underfunding them quite a bit, so we're going to look at that again. And then the audit, we had the executive branch audit, and that's in front of the governor, the treasurer, secretary of state, controllers, and we had an audit that just was finalized, and we can get it out to you. It's a real simple audit. Basically, we have fees that we charge school districts for delivering and storing food. They're called service and handling fees. That, again, that's out of the food commodity program. That hasn't changed in 20 years. Basically, their finding was that we were underfunded for how much the program spends, and so we were going to need to work with the school districts, USDA, to try to come up with a fee that will work for everybody. So this is a fee that brings in probably close to about $800,000 a year. So with that, and so we presented that. That wasn't a big deal. We had to do a 6-month follow-up on the audit that we talked about in our last meeting, and that was an administration audit, which there wasn't. It was about fleet management with one of the findings there, dairy people working on USDA audit stuff, and we cleared up that stuff. And then the last thing that we talked about was the board. Basically, that was the presentation on the board structure and how that would go forth. And if Jim wants to touch upon
Sure,
that.
I'll hit that real quick. It definitely pays to be polite, because before we presented your response that we voted on in September that basically said you recognize the authority of the executive branch and the legislature to draft and write Nevada revised statute relative to changing the configuration of the board. The group that went before us was the Taxi Cab Commission, and it was bad, and the Taxi Cab Commission chair and vice chair refused to participate, sent a message, we don't recognize your authority to tell us to do anything. And so our polite response was well received, I think we could say.
And now they charged $47 million too much for fares.
Right, right.
All out of which area of the state?
Right. So it was a rather tense presentation, and I was glad to not be the director of business and industry. But so when we presented ours, I basically conveyed your conversation and said, first off, they're very uncomfortable that they would pick, what positions should be or shouldn't be on the board, and recognizing that, if we have 11 board members and we add a member of the public, that means that somebody would then be voting themselves off the island if there was some kind of statute change, and that's, and so the governor definitely got that point. His comment was, and I said, they feel like public is represented on the Board of Agriculture, not only in that every topic that we go through we take public comment on, but that if we're talking about an agriculture issue, we have a member that's from petroleum. If we're talking a production agriculture issue, we have a member from pesticide industry that really doesn't have necessarily a dog in that. I think you said a horse in that race, and so then the comment was, well, does the Board of Ag really feel that they do not need a public member? And I said no. I said there is a concern that if there would be a public member selected, that it could be someone that's anti-agriculture or some type of niche advocacy versus just a regular public member that could then, cause problems in moving meetings forward in terms of in a timely manner. We're very proud that we have pretty productive meetings. We're able to do those in a day and utilize everybody's time in the best way possible. But ultimately, this is not a hill the Board of Ag is for sure going to die on, and left it at that. And so, we'll see if administration or legislators come forward with a bill draft to make a change there. And then I'll keep you posted and get your input once that were to happen. We'll see if that even happens. But we did, try to explain your position. I think it was fairly rational, so. And they seem to receive it well.
Okay.
That's it.
That's
all I
it.
got.
Any questions for Dale? All right, I'm not hearing any. Thank you, Dale. All right, let's do a communications board update from Rebecca. And you're going to do a communications and promotions update. We do have a link. Download.
There is an update. I am not a fan of printing, so there is an update enclosed in the agenda. Can everyone see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, just to give a little high-level update, I don't need to go through this with you line by line. For those that don't know Jessica Fagundes, we welcomed her back to the Department of Agriculture as our PIO1. If you didn't know her, you probably met her this morning. She interned here, I think, 3 times in the past and has been at the Farm Bureau for the last year and a half and just came back in December, and we're very pleased to have her on board. If you didn't have your photo taken this morning, then you will be having it taken at lunchtime, your headshot for our website. And let's see.
Make sure you please have your ties on when you go in there.
Thanks for the heads up.
Boyfriend passes around.
Everybody's all wearing the same time. It's a good idea. No, we want you guys to look like you. So, as Jerry said in the email, you can wear your hat or whatever most represents you as a member of the board. So, let's see. Tatiana's got some research going on. She's wrapping up the Senior Farmers Market survey, and we're about to ramp up on a school meal survey. You got the update on the agricultural report. We are in the planning stages for the Western Association of State Departments of Agriculture annual meeting that's happening here. We're really excited for that and the communication around it. We've been fielding a lot of media requests regarding the drought forum, a lot regarding feral horses in the Virginia Range area, so just trying to stay on top of what's going on in the media and always seeking out opportunities to promote through local and regional media all things agriculture. So, sorry, my printout is in a different order than what you guys have, so I'm trying to stay in order for you. We're working on Buy Nevada and creating a more comprehensive database for members and really to be the go-to spot for anyone who needs to find a food or agriculture resource. So we'll be rolling that out. What else did I want to make sure to highlight? As Jeff mentioned, we've got a new WUSADA, and I guess she's not even really new anymore. The WUSADA intern, Lynn, has been helping him out greatly, and thanks to Lynn and Jeff's work under the WUSADA grant, they've been very active. And Jeff has been providing leads to Nevada companies as well as there was one other thing he wanted me to highlight, and then he left the room. Helping companies start up operation in Nevada, 8 companies to start up, and then two additional companies expanding operation in Nevada. As Dale mentioned, we did enter into a couple of contracts for a statewide Nevada school meals campaign, which you guys will actually hear a little bit more about later. And always, looking for opportunities to highlight farm to school and highlight the great new standards in school meals. I think that was pretty much what I wanted to make sure to hit on with you guys. Did you have a chance to review, and are there any other questions on anything that I didn't touch on or did touch on?
The only thing that I would add is on the media relations, you picked up on the Edible Reno Tahoe social media. You got to watch those guys.
Okay.
Yeah, they send out lies without asking.
They usually come to us first, or they try to.
Not in the past.
Okay.
They may now, thanks to Alan Barrazzo. Alan was like an old backyard junkyard dog on them, man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I do have a relationship with the editor and associate editor, so
Good.
I've tried to cultivate that relationship on behalf of the department to make sure that if they do hear something, they know to come to us, and that has worked in the past.
We've had a really good relationship. I would say they've been in and talked to Director Barbie. They've taken a tour. We advertise, promote Buy Nevada and the ad play.
No, that's great. I think there's been a progression over time of learning. The same thing that Alan went through before I even got involved with the board, my father went through with growth hormones. So he got them straightened out on that with the beef industry. Then they turn around and whack the dairy guys, cut our knees out there, and Alan straightened them out. So just it sounds like there's a progression they've learned, and to go maybe talk to the people that actually do it might be a good idea.
Yeah, and if there are any, media, social media or otherwise, if there's anything that you guys are seeing out there that you want us on behalf of the department to investigate in terms of.
Go ahead, Ramona.
Oh, I was just going to reiterate what Jim said, because when I had a conversation with the editor, I think by the time we got done, she realized that so much of our production is about as natural as it can get out here, that she had a whole different view when we got off the phone.
Yeah, good. I've worked with Amanda prior to
she was
to
totally,
being here. She wants to tell the truth.
Yeah, she was totally had a total misimpression.
Yeah, so I think she knows too. When the organic thing was really hot in the media, she usually came to me and said, "Hey, can you fill me in on what's going on here?" So she wants the truth, and she wants to tell the truth, and she respects our role in that conversation. So, but if you guys do hear of things through the grapevine, through social media, on TV or whatever that you feel is being misrepresented, I'd like to know so that I can help research and help manage expectations. So that's what I'm here for.
It's funny how the different angles you hear on these kind of issues. I went to the urgent care, nothing major at all, and I'm sitting on the examining table, and in comes a PA, very nice lady, and we were talking, and she says, "Well, I'm going to put you on antibiotics." And I said, "See, you guys, we're getting beat up right now over this antibiotics thing, and we knew it. You guys are giving antibiotics for everything, and we're getting beat up because we're giving a shot to a 500-pound calf that's a year and a half from being processed." And she's like, "Oh, I'm not worried about that. What about the growth hormone thing?"
So when you left, she gave you growth hormone.
Yeah. Sorry, the voice change didn't kick in for today's meeting. Go ahead, dear. I'm sorry.
That was all I
That's
had.
all you
Unless
have?
there are any
All
other
right.
questions.
Any more questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, plant industry. I hope you're ready for a very informative and efficient. And you know what efficient means, right?
Yeah.
Did I get points for fast?
Huh?
Did I get points for fast?
Right?
Yes.
What you're saying? You don't like my 2-page update?
Huh?
You're seeing my 2-page update and went, oh.
No, because right now we see oh my goodness.
Oh, that's not his update. That's
Your
update.
I'm looking at AB 77. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So do you want me to go through each item that's on the agenda, or do you want to read them out?
Let's go ahead. You've got stuff for action, right?
Correct.
Okay.
You might want to let them know the pesticide is not on there because you guys are changing it.
Oh, correct.
Right.
Okay.
So if you do want to print out of pesticide, which is kind of long, I have some.
Okay.
But you can obviously do the shortcut.
I will do the shortcut. Thank you, Jerry. Robert Little for the record, plant industry administrator. So just going down the board agenda, 6A, we're asking for the board, this is an action item, possible action item, adopt language from the workshop and hearing to amend the pesticide regulations to protect the public environment. This is, it says NRS, but it's NAC 555. What this one is regarding is we came to you prior to go to workshop and hearing to change some of the regulations in NAC on pest control in AC 555 in regards to pest control operators. Board members Nakaguchi and No have been to both the hearings and the workshops. We've been working quite closely with industry and also with public entities. Some of the bigger things that were in this were requiring government entities that do work for hire to actually start license because they were competing with private industry and not only because of that, but other things were it was already required in NRS that all government entities license. So we were already required to do that. It was something that we weren't doing, so we're trying to get that straight in NAC. And there's a couple other things, if you'd like, I could touch upon them, but there are a couple other changes that were in there. But we've gone to workshop and hearing. We've come to agreement on what the NAC should look like. So today we're asking for the board to adopt the proposed language and the regulations on that one.
Paul and Brian, do you guys have anything that your fellow board members need to be aware of, or is everything okay?
We've pretty much worked it out in the workshop, in the hearing a couple of days ago, and the more contentious items were struck from the proposal. And so for right now, the main things with the government licensing and some other smaller changes with fees and other things, they're all
good?
They're all okay, yeah.
Okay. All right.
All the junk stuff has been removed.
Good. Since you just talked more than you've talked since you've been on this board, you now get the crowd.
Because you can't pronounce my last name.
It's Brian. Come on. I let you call me Dave or Dave. Would you like to do the motion, my friend?
Yes, I propose that we go ahead and adopt the revised changes for NAC 555.
Second.
Motion. I just messed myself up here. Now I have to, for the record, explain who did the motion. Brian did the motion, Mr. No did the second. Is there any more discussion? Anything from the public? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimous. Okay. B.
6B, adopt language from workshop and hearing to adopt the regulations necessary to clarify producer certificates and vendor certificates. This is from AB 77, NRS Chapter 576. Just quickly on this one, this was we came to go to workshop and hearing on this one. This was for two things mainly. We already have our producer certificates that we require for any producer for human consumption of foods and things like that. To register with the Department of Agriculture. We're now asking vendors, and clarification on vendor, this would be out-of-state vendors. So we get people that are coming in from California, Utah, all of our kind of neighboring states who bring their produce into Nevada, and they'll set up just stands on the side of the road, and they're not registering with anybody. So with the, looking ahead with the FSMA rules that are coming down with that, and the fact that this was kind of an unfair advantage for those in Nevada who do register with us, they should be on the same playing field. We've gone to that, and for the traceability aspects, we've already kind of mentioned some of the companies that we're having food safety problems with that have been in the news lately and everything else. This is just one more thing to one way that we could try to trace those products that are being sold here in Nevada. So this was just another. We met with,
excuse me, hang on, Robert.
Yeah.
Mr. Sprouting.
Now, will you have any kind of enforcement in set up where these stands come into, say, Elko and start selling produce? I mean, to make sure they are registered or not?
Correct. Yeah. So in conjunction with the AEO officers that we have here, they're going to be getting training on how to on all of the things that we do for enforcement. So essentially, they'll have to register with us and post on their stand that they have been registered. And we have all of our inspectors in plant industry as well. So we will be doing. Once the season starts, we'll be going around hitting the hotspots where we know people have been setting up in the past. It'll start off as more of an outreach and education thing because a lot of them probably won't know that we have these new regulations that have gone into effect in Nevada. So we'll be requiring them, you need to register with us, and then if we start finding, after a period of time which we haven't defined yet, if we find that, we have repeat offenders and everything else, we do have set forward fines for that we will enforce.
And one just add-on comment from what Robert said. Sound like I'm off the Big Bang Theory. Love it. The ag enforcement officers, that's one of the ways we're really trying to save in that account for the animal ID is because we're going to cross-train with the plant. That's what we're starting now. But then we're going to cross-train across all of our programs. And so those ag enforcement officers, excluding the one that we get in Las Vegas because that would be general fund, the others, when they are out doing the work that they do on the livestock side and have an opportunity to deal with an issue or whatever it may be, then we'll be journal vouchering. And so that's softening and spreading out the cost of those ag enforcement officers more than they have been over the past several years. And we really have a need, specifically in the plant, where we have folks that are coming in and doing landscaping in Las Vegas. This is one of the specific things that I got hammered with when I did a business speech down in Las Vegas. That are, you got licensed landscapers that are there going through the process, following the law, following the rule, and then you have those that aren't, and this guy was like, why the hell am I paying? And so that's going to give us the capacity to start picking up on those other areas where we really had a void in that for the last 6-7 years, somewhere in there. So that's going to work out good for the livestock ID account as well. Kind of spread that around, just so you're aware.
One of the things I would add to that, as we move forward, like going online with a lot of our processes and things like that, that's going to free up some of our inspectors and stuff in the Las Vegas area, and also here to actually get out in the field and do more enforcement of those types of industries as well too. So all around us, we're looking to have a bigger presence and more enforcement on some of the things that have kind of been sliding by over the last couple of years. Next 3 items are also for possible action. Oh, I can't get past you. You got to vote on that first. So.
What's the deal, man? I'm just complimenting you with the director. So. Okay. Is this what is this? Is this right up Paul and Brian's alley?
Well,
or
sort of.
More of the plant? It's into Jim Snyder, and if Charlie was here too, because it's producer vendor certificates and stuff like that.
Can they get that certificate online if they're coming in from out of state?
Yes, all of the certificates, once you're approved, we've already developed certificates, we're going to be putting them on our website.
All of that process across the board will become automated as you keep moving forward. So, yeah.
Okay. Just for general knowledge, whoever does the motion, could you please refer to the item number when you do the motion?
Also, the Sheriff, you could refer to the legislative number, so there's kind of a tie-in.
Oh, sure.
And I think that would maybe you can put that on the record for agenda item 6A too.
Good. So the legislative number for the one that you guys already approved, that's LCB file number R093-15. And for this one, it is file number R086-15.
Say that again.
Okay, so the first one, the test control operator one was R093-15. And for producer certificate, that one is R086-15.
And I just want to ask Dennis if it's sufficient.
Let's go right down. If you got any more?
No, that's it.
Okay.
I just want to ask Dennis if it's sufficient for us so we don't have to worry about this. Is it okay if we refer to the item number on the agenda as it's stated? Is that good enough? Or would you like to see these numbers?
Well, I think the number, if somebody is doing a kind of a regulatory history research project, they want to know when was that adopted? And of course, it will all be before the LCB, Legislative Commission, but I think, for research purposes, I think it's important to have that.
And we just missed that. Normally that would be on your agenda. We all looked at it and went right by it. So that's our bad.
Okay.
All on that sword.
Okay, yeah, it's a horrible sword to fall on that. Okay, B, so we'll go ahead. Anybody want, anything from the public?
Well, actually, I
Input?
just had
Mr.
one
Anderson?
question. So was anyone opposed to this, or were there any concerns regarding the
No.
certificate?
No, on this one. We did have a couple, so when we held both the workshop and hearings, we had some members of the public that came. There wasn't much interest in it really, but those that did come were in full support of it. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone want to make a motion, Mr. Noah?
Yes, Paul Noah for the record. I do recommend that we pass this it's number R086-15.
Correct. Just read B, Paul.
There we go. I recommend that we adopt the language for the workshop and hearing to adopt the regulations for R086-15.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Noah. Seconded. And just for clarification, Paul, no recommendation. You are actually making a motion to adopt this language. Thank you. All right. Any other discussion? Motion was made by Mr. Noah, seconded by Mr. Snyder for the record. Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Abstentions? Motion carries unanimous. 6C.
Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I'd like to invite our seed program manager, Russ William, up here for these next three possible action items. He's been working with these boards on these items, so he could answer them better than I could at this point. So I'll let him put them out there, and then you guys can ask any questions.
Okay. By the way, let's see, we have, what have we got here, you guys? Did we got too many C's? Well, I got.
We're on C, D, and E.
Look
on
at
6C.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, look at your attachments is all I was saying.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I just was double checking. So we are on action, it's really 6C, and this is an action item. Go ahead.
So Russ Willem, for the record, I'm the Seed Program Manager. I'm here on behalf of the Nevada Seed Council Alfalfa Research and Promotion Board, acting as kind of their liaison, if you will. So I believe it was November of 2015, we held a board meeting and discussed some potential research funding initiatives that we wanted to enter into, and it was determined that the Seed Council would like to expend $5,000 from the budget 4544-10 to donate to an initiative held by the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension program, entomology program over there, to donate for ligas research funding. Ligas is an insect that is heavily detrimental to the alfalfa seed industry, and the board would like to promote more research in that field as to expand our knowledge of ligas, and I think this is a fitting expenditure to kind of assist in us doing that. So if there are any objections or anything, or if anybody has any questions regarding that, or I know it's an action item, so the board is looking for your approval to expend $5,000 at this point.
Any questions on this item? Anything from the public? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sproutley.
I move that we approve the request of Nevada Seed Council to expend $5,000 from the 4544-10 Research and Promotion account to donate a research initiative associated with the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension, and that would be, we don't have an R number, I guess, for that. Or
No.
Legislative Council. Okay, that should be it.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Sproutley made the motion. We have a second from Mr. No. Any more discussion? Any public comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimous. Next item is D, AD.
Okay, so similar to what was just discussed, the Nevada City Council requests to expend $5,000 from the budget account 4544-10 Research and Promotion to donate to the National Alfalfa Forage Alliance in order to continue funding the initiative to further alfalfa seed research technologies. This also doubles in a membership fee. The National Association of Alfalfa Forage accepts donations in order to maintain membership, and I think consistently the Nevada Seed Council has been donating to NAFA in order to maintain membership and can be involved with various research projects that they enter into. And it's beneficial for Nevada in the fact that if we are a member of NAFA, this entity will carry out trials based in our region that's beneficial for alfalfa production technology and things of the sort. So they utilize our climate zones and all of our regions in order to benefit all of our producers that do have some involvement with alfalfa seed production. So yet again, we're asking for approval to expend $5,000 from that budget account to maintain our membership.
Any questions on this item? Any public comment?
Mr.
Snyder?
Are those trials conducted?
So as of late, we haven't had any done. I know that probably 5 years ago, Blaine Smith, BS Farms up in Orvada, they had a research trial that was conducted, and all of the details regarding those developments and results are held on NAFA's website if you want to look at them. Or you can contact me and I can get you the results that way also. But yeah, I know that there's the potential to. It's just a matter of, do the boys and the board want to have trials conducted in their regions? So it's up to them. I don't think they've desired to have any conducted lately.
So, I have a question. You just, stimulated a question for me. If they haven't been done for a few years, have you been expending $5,000 a year for that research?
It has been a consistent $5,000. Last year we donated $20,000. They have a tier membership structure that they work off of. NAFA does. $20,000 is a gold membership, and that stems with more benefits, and then $5,000 is a silver membership.
So we may not be getting any research results necessarily out of the $5,000 investment then?
We have the ability to access the resources that NAFA provides. We may not have on-the-ground research trials ongoing in Nevada, but we have the ability to access research that NAFA is providing to the alfalfa industry with that membership.
Do we have the option of requesting those trials? Or
for one to be carried out?
Yes.
Yep, absolutely. That's the benefit of membership.
So from the general agriculture people, do you have any comments or?
I would like to see the trials conducted. To me, that would be valuable information.
Absolutely. And the Nevada Seed Council meets biannually at this point, so I can bring that up next meeting. We just had our meeting yesterday, actually, so I can send out an email and see if anybody's willing or would like to carry out a trial at this point. Okay.
Any other questions? Motion? Public comment?
Mr. Chairman.
I did that already, by the way. Well, that's okay. I appreciate it. I need that.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sprowley.
I would move that we, as in relationship to agenda item 6D, that the Nevada Seed Council request to expend the $5,000 from account 4544-10 Research and Promotion to donate to the National Alfalfa Forage Alliance in order to continue funding the initiative to further alfalfa and seed research technologies be approved.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Sprowley made the motion. Missy Morrison is the second. Any discussion? Public comment? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimous. 6E.
Okay, Nevada Seed Council again. We're spending some money. So the Nevada Seed Council requests to expend $2,072.27 from the budget account 4544 research and promotion in order to pay assessment fees, dues, and maintain membership accreditation with the National Alfalfa Forage Alliance. So basically what this entails is, as being a member of this accredited body, they impose assessment fees based upon the annual production in alfalfa that is produced every year. So they have a set fee per acre that we have to buy into every year. And this is just another aspect of us being able to maintain our membership. And then it's their way of mandating some sort of funding for their body. That's with membership. You have the assessment fees, and that pays into an account with NAPA, and they utilize that money for research studies as well. So
great.
That's it.
Any questions from the board, Mr. Sproutley?
I'm looking at the revenues for account 4544, and they're taking in about $103,000. Who is that from assessment? Where are those assessments coming from? Where's that money coming from?
I think that's reserve, actually.
So that's budget account 4544, which is a combination account for both alfalfa seed research as well as garlic and onion. They're not split up at this point. I think that we're working on dividing the two budgets.
No, but
where's it coming from?
Where's the revenue come from?
Oh, the revenue comes from assessment fees that are imposed.
To the producers?
Yeah, from our producers.
Okay.
So in statute, we have an assessment fee allocated out for all acreage produced in certified seed for alfalfa, and producers pay into that.
So if we're going to go back to the days when we turned brand guys into agriculture inspectors, then we want money out of those accounts into the brand inspection account to cover their costs. Just like, right? We're getting
brand guys are turned into what?
You're going to make the brand guys are going to eventually.
The ag enforcement officers, when they do pullovers, whatever they do that would be associated with other accounts, including we've had an investigation in food and nutrition, then that'll be journal vouchered, their time, to those accounts. So there won't be money coming into the brand's account. The difference would be there wouldn't be money going out of the brand's account. So if they work 20 hours that given week in support of 4545, which is the plant quarantine account, then their 20 of their hours cost would come out of that account, not out of the brand inspection account, or animal inspection account.
I mean, police.
Just like we get fees from the Virginia strays to pay for driveways.
Right.
Okay, there was a question there that was answered. Do we have any more questions? Anything from the public? Motion? Mrs. Morrison? You leaned up there and.
Oh, I did I?
So you just got nominated.
I move to approve the Nevada Seed Council request to expend $2,072.27 from 4544-10, and that ties to
none up there.
None up there. Okay.
No, you're good.
So moved. Or moved.
I'll second.
And that was seconded by Mr. Paris. Motion was made by Mrs. Morrison. Any more discussion? Public? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item F.
Before we go to item F, so we did move something from previously in the board meeting to be talked about here when it came to the assessment fees collected for seed and garlic. Do you want us to discuss that before we go to F, or while Russ is still here? Or
Is it an action item?
It's not an action.
No.
It's for information only?
Yep.
Why don't you put it under your board update, Robert?
Well, I can move it into there, or go ahead.
I was going to say, if he's already up here, then it might be easier just to continue on with it.
Oh, it's one of your items.
It is.
Oh, okay.
Unexpected item.
That's right. Mr. Anderson feels you don't need the exercise. So you're up here. Go ahead.
So Dale had discussed an issue with an account that has kind of remained stagnant over the past 5 years, and that's the garlic and onion assessment fee account, as to why we're not collecting assessment fees at this point, and how no money has been expended from that account probably in the last 5 years. And I think that's kind of, after the retirement of Randy Bradley, I think that kind of fell to the wayside a little bit, and the board mildly dissolved, and they didn't convene for several years. And at this point, I'm working on a resurgence of the Garlic and Onion Board to maintain consistent meetings in order to address the issues of non-collection of assessment fees, as well as to see where they'd like to go with allocating out that money in that account in order for research and promotion within the garlic and onion industry. I've reached out to both Jim Snyder and Bob Ean, who were previous board members, and Bob Ean is holding an allium symposium starting in February. I believe it's February 8th. I will be heading down to Tulare, California to attend that, and hopefully we can get some fire under some feet to have Bob Ean come back to Nevada and utilize his knowledge of the industry, which is pretty vast, to help the board reconvene, because I think he was a pretty proactive member. And then in speaking with Jim, he's definitely on